It is another episode of the Florida Man and Friends podcast here on Rivals.com. I'm Rob Cassidy, joined by Dan McDonald. Just a couple of two basketball reporters at Rivals hanging out this week. No coaches. We're more excited than those coaches anyway, though. Those guys are boring for the most part. Every once in a while you get a coach in that wants to talk and like say something interesting. I thought Kenny Blakeney from Howard was interesting, but coaches are tough, because they're so
buttoned up. This time of year, they've lost a game or they're worried about the next one or whatever it is.
Yeah, and plus, what are they really going to say? We'll keep doing it in the hopes of finding somebody interesting. I think we might get Mike Boynton in here. But nobody's going to be as interesting as you. That's for sure. How are things, man? How was your Thanksgiving, Dan?
Great. How about you?
It was okay. I donated a lot of money to the local economy, and the local economy being my bookie. Other than that, though, man, I kind of sat around and ate. My car got towed the day after Thanksgiving, which was a disaster. For people that have never lived in Miami, there's a reality show about towing companies here called South Beach Tow. They're the most predatory. And everything about the show is right. I mean, these people are like, because they prey on poor people pretty much, right? Like if you can't afford to get your car out, it compounds and compounds and compounds to the point where it's like crippling debt. So I just feel I'll go in there to get my car after they towed it, and it's just a line of people calling the person behind the counter every name in the book and they deserve it. They're like the payday loans people, Dan. They should all perish, in my opinion. Was your Thanksgiving was less exciting then?
Nothing on that level. Nothing even close, honestly. Just a lot of watching ball and watching some football, and that's it.
All right, well, let's get into some of that ball. I watched a lot of basketball pretty much all day, besides the time when I was at the tow company screaming at somebody behind the counter. I pretty much watched everything to get my eyes on. We'll start with you, though. What were kind of your takeaways from the first couple of days and from the golden window, as our friend John Rothstein calls it?
Well, I think we have to start with Gonzaga, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so too.
What they look like, and they do this every year, man. They look so good right out of the gates. It doesn't matter who they bring in or how many new guys they got or who they lost or whatever it is. But you see Jalen Suggs come in, takes him no time at all. And, I don't know about you, but to me, he looks like the early favorite for freshman of the year. He's phenomenal. And then the other guy that's really jumped out for me is Drew Timme. It's like, Holy crap, has he been good inside? That's about as good as inside-outside punches you can find in the country right now, I would think.
So they've run Kansas out of the building pretty much, which nobody really does. And, I am as impressed with them as everybody else is. But, of course, with Gonzaga, the conversation is always going to be now, what does it mean going forward? I think, as you said, they always start great out of the gates. It's a small sample size, and you're going to have to forgive me for not, I'm not there yet. I think they've looked incredible. But this team seems to be a different team when March hits, for whatever reason that is. And Suggs is incredible. Do you think that this team has a distinctly different feel from the other teams that everybody thought was going to win the national championship or compete for it?
Yeah, I do. I think Jalen Suggs is different than what they've had before. They haven't had somebody that dynamic in the backcourt that I can remember. And what Drew Timme's doing inside, it's just he's skilled, but one of his best skills is just playing hard, which is it sounds simple, but he can really do it. And he's so strong on the boards. He can finish. He can hit shots. And they got – I saw somebody – I can't remember who tweeted this. It might have been Jeff Goodman or somebody. But it seems like they got two of everything. They got two shooters. They got two bangers inside. They got two point guards. They got size in the wing. There's not anything they don't have. And I think that makes them a little different than past teams.
Yeah, and it will help, if Suggs does get in foul trouble or something in a tournament game, which, tends to happen to some stars sometimes, and there's no coming back from it because it's the nature of basketball. But you're right, having two of everything will work. I just want to see how this team holds up because we're not going to know anything about them. They've played their toughest games unless something pops up. They're not going to play a team like Kansas again until the NCAA tournament, unless I'm missing something on their schedule, which I very well could be.
Yeah, they usually
West Virginia soon, don't they?
That sounds right. I know they usually play a tougher non-conference because they get to conference play for 2 months, and it's no disrespect to their league,
disrespect to their league.
they're not on that level. So, I think it kind of takes them a little bit of time to ramp back up. And but no, I think this team can do it. They will do it.
Let me ask you this: do we think that's what hurts them in March? Is they get into this lull of playing in the WCC, and not that it's a bad conference because it's not. It's a great mid-major league, but it's different. They get into this league of dominating people, and then they get into March, and it's a different. There's different depth to some of these Power 5 these high major teams that they play. Is it jarring for them because they get into a groove? I guess that's my pet theory, is that their conference kills them when it comes to March.
I don't know that it hurts them as much as I think what happens is you see a team like Kansas right now where they're not a complete product right now. Kentucky, they lost to Richmond yesterday.
Yeah.
Not complete products. But what I think their leagues allow them to do is they can progress throughout the year, and you're constantly, for Kansas, you're playing Baylor, you're playing Texas, you're playing Oklahoma. So you keep getting better playing against those teams, whereas like Gonzaga gets tested, but I think they get tested more when they're not playing well because they kind of overlook somebody.
Yeah, it's not every night.
Yeah, they don't get it every night, whereas Kentucky, you're going to go to Florida, you're going to go to Auburn, you're going to go to Tennessee, and you're going to get some of these other teams that have guys, and I think those teams have more chances to get better as opposed to Gonzaga, where it's like Mark Few's got to like hold his team to their own standard, and you can't even really worry about the scoreboard. Like, it's just, are we playing to our caliber or not? And I think
also, even breaking it down individually, your pros, if Suggs is on Texas Tech or he's on Kansas, your pros are playing other pros every night, right? Like, there's at least one guy on that team that's, if he's not going to be in the NBA, he's going to be a pro in Europe, he's going to be a pro somewhere else. You don't get a lot of that in the WCC, and I wonder if that stunts development sometimes. And I know this sounds like kind of a boomer thing.
In a roundabout way, I think you just summed up everything I was trying to say. I think it's harder for them to get better from January to beginning of March. Like, I think they can maintain, but if you're just maintaining and everybody else is getting better, I think that can make it a little tricky come March for them. So
this will be a good segue into what I think, who else I think looked extremely impressive in the first week and I think could win the national title is Illinois. Everybody talks about Io and he's great. He filled it up. But man, Kofi Cookburn now, last year wasn't a fluke. He looks even more physically impressive right now. Dominates the boards. Is starting to score even a little bit more too. And if those two guys are going and the rest of that supporting cast is going like they've been going, that's going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I mean, those are obviously the two superstars, but the two freshmen, Andre Curbelo and Adam Miller, they're going to be able to help them out. I mean, there's going to be bumps in the road for those guys, but yeah, I mean, Trent Frazier stuff. I mean, they got guys now. I mean, Brad Underwood's, and I think you had him on the podcast. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country, bar none. Like, I think he's really, really good. So I think he's got enough firepower where he's going to max these guys. They're going to be playing the second week in the tournament. Yeah,
let me tell you a quick Brad Underwood story here because this is interesting. So when I was covering K-State, there was a year, and I can't remember what year it was. It was the year they went to the Elite Eight. They had Jacob Pullen. They had Rodney McGruder, who's a pro on the team. And they were in a lull in probably through November and into December. And Frank Martin, who was the head coach at the time, turned the offense over to Underwood, who was an assistant on the team. He scrapped the entire offense, put something new in the middle of the season, and they just start rattling off wins. They end up in the Elite Eight. They played that triple overtime game with Xavier and ended up losing to Butler in the Elite Eight. But that's when I kind of knew Underwood was a coach. Like, I mean, they were the same guys. This was the team that was losing to teams they had no business losing to. Underwood takes over, installs this new motion offense, and they looked completely different. So now that he's got talent, this might be a dangerous situation for a lot of Big Ten teams.
Go back, probably 4 or 5 years when he was the head coach of Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll remember this, but they upset somebody in the first round. I cannot remember who it was, but they had Christian Walkup, big white dude.
Big bearded
34. And if you watch those guys play, like, you could see that was a fun, like, motion style, some Princeton concepts to it, but it's a tough offense to defend when you get some good guys and you have shooters.
No, yeah, no doubt about it. And, like, he's proven that he doesn't really need super elite talent to make it effective. And now he kind of has that. And when I was watching him over the weekend, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Illinois is going to win the national championship because it's college basketball and who knows. But I'd be real shocked if they weren't hanging around, in the second weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Anything else? What else you got?
Another team, speaking of Big Ten, Iowa looks tough, man.
Your squad.
Luka Garza, another player of the year candidate nationally. Wieskamp, McCaffrey's son. I mean, they're going to be tough, man. Like, they're another team. I'd be pretty surprised at this point if they're not a second week into the tournament team or beyond that, honestly. I mean,
well, speaking of Iowa teams, let's talk about how my pick, Northern Iowa, completely crapped the bed. They're 0-3. I came on here and picked them as like the best mid-major in the country as an Elite Eight team. They go out, they lose to Utah State. They lose to
I did mean to text you about that the other day. I did see they lost the game, and I meant to text you.
They didn't lose that game. They lost 3 games. But I don't understand it. Like, I mean, I watched them. They're still shooting it pretty well. They don't really have the inside presence, I guess. But, man, that's not looking good for our bet. It looks like I might be headed to the Bills logo.
Yeah, it's early head start, but you get one replacement in January, so there you go.
That's true. I may have to boot them. Let me see what else I have written down here. I took some notes over the weekend. Baylor, we talked about Baylor. They looked good in limited action, I guess. I mean, Mark Vital is an interesting player, I think. You know, he doesn't get really the attention that some of the other guys get. But, I mean, he had 15 rebounds in that game against Washington. And if he's going to control the glass like that, he doesn't really need to score. And he does. I mean, he scores. I mean, this is a guy that averaged, I think, between 8 and 9 points a game the time he's been in Baylor. He seems to have stepped forward that way. And if he's going to do this and control the boards like that, you know, while everybody else scores, Baylor, you know, it's no revelation that they're a dangerous team. But there isn't a lot of competition there in the Big 12. Texas Tech hasn't looked incredible yet. Kansas is going to be good. It's hard to win at Kansas, but they don't look like a typical Kansas team. This could be a good year for Baylor.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Baylor, too, and I'm going to throw it, speaking of Illinois, we just got done talking about, Illinois fans will appreciate this. This Baylor team, I think, has some similarities to the Illinois team that went to the national championship with Luther Head, Darren Williams, D. Brown, Roger Powell was the 4-man, and James Augustine the 5-man. So you get all those guards they have, Davion Mitchell, Maceo Teague, and Jared Butler. Mark Vital's kind of got the Roger Powell thing going on. And they've got multiple big guys that can kind of play the James Augustine role. And it's when you have a team like that, like Mark Vital, he can do it, like you said. But the fact that he's willing to go get 15 rebounds and not take 20 shots a game, and they don't run plays for him, they can run plays for all the other guys. I think that builds good team chemistry, I think. And when you have that kind of talent, too, I think they're going to be hard to guard and they're going to be hard to beat down there in Baylor.
It is so hard. I credit Scott Drew here. It is so hard to convince a guy at this level, especially like Vital, that is so used to being the star on a team to
top 75 recruit, if I'm not mistaken.
To impact 50, the game. Maybe? Yeah. I know he's a 4-star. To impact the game, that he can impact the game in other ways, but scoring bunches of points. And he's bought into that. And, you know, without him, they're not the same team. You know, he may not show up in the scoring column, but man, he impacts shots, he plays defense, and the rebounding totals speak for themselves now. And if he's going to keep doing this, you know, it's a credit to Scott Drew, who went through a lot of crap, I think. Like, for the first few years he was at Baylor, people really liked to make fun of him. There was that thought that nobody did less with more than Scott Drew. I think that's dead now. Now he's just got to get over the hump in the NCAA tournament. I think he has the team to do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think they would have been a team that could have done it last year. I think they're one of the teams that I genuinely feel bad for that they didn't get their chance to do it last year.
Yeah, and maybe Northern Iowa was that team too. I mean, I just, you know, it's probably my fault. If there are any Northern Iowa fans listening to this podcast, I completely jinxed them. We got anything else? Or you want to move on to some recruiting stuff or what?
You know, I would say this too. Just one other thing that kind of jumped out here locally in Atlanta is Mercer and Georgia State both beat Georgia Tech this past week. And Georgia Tech was a team that I would have predicted was going to be a breakthrough and if Josh Pastner make the tournament this year. And it's still possible because Mercer and Georgia State are good teams. So I'm not trying to downplay them, but it's just kind of – it's a little surprising that you start 0-2 and you lose the 2 in-state.
No, there are definitely some red flags there. But, you know, these early games, especially this year –
It's tough.
It's going to be interesting to see how different things are because, you know, even in a normal season, Thanksgiving –
Then this year, you don't even know how many times these teams have been able to practice because if they get shut down or what. So
it's going to be interesting to see how these teams change over the course of, you know, the season. If they make it to an NCAA tournament, how many games they play, who knows? And there's so many variables. That's kind of why that Elite Eight game we played was interesting. It's because it's a total crapshoot, right?
Oh, no doubt.
Let's talk about some big commitments we've had. So Bruce Thornton committed, your guy from Atlanta, who I saw play in that very building that's sitting behind you, which last week I accidentally think I referred to as Lakewood when it's Lake Point. But isn't there a football stadium called Lakewood there somewhere?
Yes, there's a football stadium and there's a concert venue down south of Atlanta called Lakewood.
All right, so let me ask you this about your city, because I love Atlanta. I like going to Atlanta. It's great. But everything is either got a lake or a peach, and like the streets are impossible because everything is.
There's Peachtree streets all over the place here. I mean,
did we run out of names? Is it like
actually, let me take that back. Peachtree, if you're anywhere in Atlanta. If you get on a peach tree here, a peach tree there, you you never know what direction you're going. It's not one of these simple like New York City style grid street systems. So like unless you have a good sense of direction, like you're going to get lost.
No, it's a nightmare. And
so might as well bring your GPS because it's not an easy city to get around.
Yeah, anyway, apologies to Lake Point, which I refer to as Lake Wood, because, you know, you can keep your Lake.
I didn't even catch that. So
I caught it after I did it. And then I was like, maybe I said Lake Point. And then I went back and re-listened, and I was like, oh, man, I just slandered your employer. Your audio is doing the thing where it cuts out again.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now I can. You're back, Dan. Thank God. I was worried. All right. Anyway, talking about Bruce Thornton, what did you think of it? Like, what's Ohio State getting? You've seen him more than I've seen him. I saw him once, and I was pretty impressed. He is a big, tough guard. He's a little bit bigger. Like, when you see him, he's kind of got the broad shoulders. I mean, I don't want to say he's got the Rob Cassidy build, but he has it. He's a tough guy. He can go through contact. He can finish. I think he's gonna shine at Ohio State.
I think he's a stud. I mean, the way I've been describing him to people around here lately, and just coaches who call me and ask about him, I think he's one of the safest bets. In the 11 years I've been doing recruiting coverage, he's one of the safest bets to be a really good college player. Like, I have very, very little doubt that he's going to go play for Chris Holtmann, who I think is a terrific coach, which I think only helps my theory here. He's going to be a star in the Big Ten. There's zero doubt in my mind. Like you said, he defends. He's a point guard floor general, but he can also score it when you need him. He's tough. He's strong. I mean, he checks every single box. I would say this. I think the one thing is shooting the ball consistently. He needs to get better. But as you said, people saw it here in Atlanta on Friday in the Hoops Giving. He went for 27 points against I can't remember who they played. But it was against higher-level teams. It was a higher-level event. So he can do it. The comparison I've been kind of using, I don't know if this is – I'm terrible at the comparison game. From an Ohio State perspective, think of him as like a bigger, stronger, maybe a little better scoring version of Aaron Kraft. Just kind of the guy that he does the tough, gritty thing, leader, but he makes the big shots, the big plays. He's tough. He can score. Like that's kind of what I think they're getting, but to I think a higher level than what Aaron Kraft was capable of.
Bruce reminds me of what we think of when we talk about New York City point guards.
Yes, that's a good call.
Just like Atlanta does everything. You know, they stole rap music from us, and now they've stolen the tough giant point guard from us. That's fine.
We'll take it.
But he does.
Hey, nobody who lives in Atlanta is from Atlanta, so we're all from somewhere else.
True. So you've stolen the style of guard play from New York as well. But that's kind of what Bruce reminds me of. And the one time I've seen him on film, he's like a New York City point guard. He's not afraid to kind of mix it up. He can score on the inside. He even rebounds pretty well for a point guard.
Yeah, no, I had not heard that before. That's a really good call on that.
So, yeah, I guess, was it Ohio State the whole time, or, you were on top of this the whole way? By the time I took over, you were already embedded with Bruce and everything going on. How long had it kind of seemed like he was headed in that direction?
So, I'll say this. When he did his top 5 at the beginning of November, I had a pretty good feel for which 5 schools are going to be in the mix. I thought Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Indiana, and Purdue. I thought all those schools are in a pretty good spot. Beyond that, it was kind of hard to tell which way he was leaning much beyond that. I did know Ohio State made a really strong impression when they came in to offer him. Holtmann did a great job. Jake Diebler did a great job. The whole staff did a great job there. I know there was a draw to play Georgia a little bit because his parents are both athletes there. It's close by. They're recruiting his younger brother to play football there. So there was a little bit of that. Alabama had the style of play that he really, really liked. Purdue's staff, they sent all 3 of their assistants down to see him and Matt Painter last year. So they were fully committed to recruiting him. And Mike Roberts, assistant at Indiana, did a great job recruiting him. So all 5 had something going for him. But I think he knew probably a month or so ago what he was going to do. I think he could have made a decision a month ago. I just think he needed a little bit of time to figure it out. But he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to get his senior. He wanted to get the decision out of the way before his junior year started. So, I think Ohio State got a really good one.
Speaking of Georgia, and we'll get into this, it looks like Aminu Mohammed is going to announce in mid-December. So we got a couple weeks for that. But Georgia's involved there. Georgia has been in not so many, but they've been in a handful of really high-profile recruiting battles, with Jabari and Bruce. And them and Indiana, to some point, seemed to just miss out here. It seemed like Mohammed really liked Georgia. And now you think that, unless they free up a scholarship somehow, it's going to be tough for them to take him. What are you kind of hearing on him and Georgia and the other schools that I kind of heard are involved? You think that Georgetown is up there. You think that Indiana is definitely a player. And K-State was, but it seems like they've kind of cooled. Where are you kind of at on him? And have you heard anything on the Georgia side of this?
Yeah, so I do think you're right. I think Georgia definitely has the attention. I think the whole thing with Anthony Edwards being the number one pick, he's a guard, kind of plays a similar game. I think Crean's done a really good job of selling that to him. So I definitely think they're in the mix. But as you just said, like the big hurdle here is if he wants to come in mid-year, where does that scholarship come from? Because right now they got 13 guys in scholarship. So somebody would have to leave or something unforeseen would have to happen.
Yeah, it's harder to run somebody off in the middle of the year.
Yeah. But I mean, it's very possible that somebody. I mean, last year in the middle of the year, they had a big man transfer out and go to Jacksonville State. So I mean, it's very possible with how transient college basketball is these days. So I do think Georgia's in a really good spot if they can have a scholarship open mid-year. But as you mentioned,
it's difficult sometimes to kind of project these things because one time Frank Martin told me when they oversigned all the time. It's what they did at K-State. They'd sign, however many guys, and, we'd spend time and a lot of ink on, where are the scholarships going to come? Frank would always say it always works out. And it does. Somebody gets run, somebody leaves, somebody gets homesick. So who knows?
I know this. There's a Power 5 coach, we'll leave it at that, who I know his recruiting strategy was basically up until the last couple of years when everything changed with the transfer rule, is just let's sign one over every single year. And we're gonna have somebody leave, or we're gonna kind of encourage the bottom guy on our roster to take a hike because we've got to it's a cutthroat business, man. You got to win. If you have a guy on your team that's not good enough,
look, everybody knows the stakes. And I've always been one. These kids should be getting paid 100%. It's professional sports. Pay them all. They deserve the money. But it's an imperfect system, and you got to look out for number one, whether you're a player or a coach. Let the kids transfer. And if the coaches are going to run somebody, I mean, everybody knew the stakes when they got into this. Is it a bad system? Yeah, but, I mean, you're familiar with the bad system.
Everybody's got to look out for themselves to some extent, like you said. The really good coaches, if they're at, a low major school, if they can get an offer to coach at the high major level, they're going to take it. If there's a kid at a low major school that gets an offer or somebody kind of back channels to him that, hey, Duke will take you on a transfer or North Carolina will want you to transfer in if you will go in the portal. They're going to take it. So, everybody's got to kind of look out for themselves here. So
this transfer rule that will allow one-time transfer should even the playing field a little bit because, the most hypocritical thing is kids not being allowed to transfer, but coaches being able to kind of wash their hands, right after a year and leave. So hopefully the playing field gets equaled. We don't need to go too much further into that. Let's see. What else? I guess that's probably all Mohammed. I could see him, he's a DC guy. I could see Georgetown winning this thing. Indiana led forever. But I'm starting to get kind of hesitant with them because you want to talk about a team that keeps missing out by minuscule proportions on big name guys. I don't want to say that something's going on there, but man, they've had some bad luck.
No, I would agree with you. And the other thing, like we said with Georgia about the mid-year enrollment here, if I'm not mistaken, Georgetown and Indiana both have spots mid-year right now for them to come in and take those. So sitting here today on November 30th, it's easier to see the path to how he ends up in one of those two. But, I mean, with how, like I said, how transient the sport is, next couple of weeks, who knows? Does Georgia have a kid transfer out? Okay, if that happens, well, now that kind of changes the game a little bit here.
Well, if that happens, then it points to the fact that he's going there. If all of a sudden a kid comes up,
for sure,
gone. But all right, that's that'll be done when we're done. You spent some time at some tournaments the last couple of weeks in Atlanta. Nothing has happened in Miami recently, although there will be a Pangos event here shortly. I'm looking forward to. What did you see? Anybody jump off the page to you?
I would say the biggest winner of the weekend from a recruiting standpoint is Scoot Henderson, man. We already have him ranked as a 5-star in 2022 class. He is special. And everybody here already knew this, but I think it kind of helped. He's in a high-profile matchup with Mikey Williams and with J.D. Davison. So when you're going against other 5-star guards, that kind of helps elevate everybody in the game. But he went back-to-back 30-point nights and just did it in such a ridiculous fashion. All the dunks, he's hitting a couple threes, which is kind of always been a knock on him. Can he really shoot it? But he's so quick. I would say this. I think his feel for playing point guard needs to get better, but it's getting better. But just natural ability, man. There's not a lot of guards that have what he's got. On the other side of that, Mikey Williams, I thought it's the 2023 prospect. I mean, whenever we get around to doing our 2023 rankings, I mean, he's going to be
January,
top 5. Yeah, January, top 5, top 10. I mean, he's a physically strong kid. He can score it himself. You can see kind of a little bit like Scoot, probably needs to get a little more reps playing point at the high level like that. But it's there. So he was really impressive.
It's definitely there. I've seen him. I watched a little bit of that game on the stream, and then I watched when he was on ESPN. The turnovers, they're not. I don't want to say they're troubling because he's 2023, but he's got to tone those down somehow. And it's nice to see the confidence and nice to see he believes in himself. But some of the passes he's thrown are a little bit overconfident, and they end up in the other team's hands. And that'll
I'll say that the thing with him and Scoot that I like is I think it's always they're both naturally very aggressive, which I think is good. I think it's easier to kind of tone a guy down a little bit than it is to, hey, man, like, you got to ramp it up a little bit. So both of those guys are crazy talents, and I think they can both be stars in college whenever they get there.
Well, I mean, Mikey is, he's a marketing machine already. He's in – I don't know if you saw that he was in a Drake sneaker release video already. Did you see that?
Not see that, but it does not surprise me. He's already got like over 1 million Instagram followers. I mean,
yeah, and he's hanging out with Drake online, and this guy, if he goes up to the hype, he's a marketing dream. He's the kind of guy that should have his own sneaker one day, but the results got to be there on the field or on the court. I mean, he can't be a marketing machine alone, and I think he's trending that way. I'm not doubting him in any way. I'd like to see him live. I've seen him on TV. He only played the one game, right?
Yeah, they played Saturday night.
Okay, well. We should maybe address the ranking stuff. So the plan right now is 2021 update, 2022 update, and maybe a top 25 or 50 for 2023 in early January. It's going to be difficult, but I think I have faith in Russ and you and I and some input from other people that we'll get it done.
Yeah, I think there's been plenty of action. I've seen more in the Southeast than anywhere else, so that kind of makes it a little tricky and the fact that there was no circuits this summer just makes it absolutely like, how do you compare a kid from Georgia to a kid in California this year? Like,
it's hard. I've seen kids in Florida.
Usually you get the Atlanta Celtics will play the Compton Magic and you'll see those guys play each other, or you'll get team takeovers playing Mac Urban Fire. So you can compare all these guys, but when they don't play against each other, not even in the same setting, it's so tough.
It is. And, it's been easier for us to get because, all our guys are in the East Coast. We don't have anybody out West. Kristen's helped with some of the West guys. Kristen Peak, who does good work over at Yahoo Sports and for Rivals.com. She's seen some of those guys. But between me and I've seen all the Florida kids. I've been up and down at events here. And obviously came to Atlanta. But it's some of the New York guys. But it's going to be those West Coast kids are kind of getting a raw deal from all angles, I think. There just aren't even in the industry a lot of people that live out West and have been able to go.
There hasn't been as many tournaments out that way either. So it's just there hasn't been as many platforms for them to go out and show, what
everybody's had to come to Phoenix, really, it looks like. California kids have played out there. All right, anything else or just –
Yeah, I would say this as far as 2022 rankings. I thought the one guy that really, really popped for me this past week, both at the Jared Cook Classic and the Hoops Giving, was Malik Ewan. He's a 2022 center. My goodness, is he talented. He's so big, strong, athletic, but kind of nimble too. Like, it's just you don't see a lot of kids that age that have that kind of body control when they're just that big. And he's hitting threes. He can rebound. He outlet passes like Kevin Love. I mean, he is just a dominant force right now. The other guy who I would say –
what's his recruiting look like? Who are we looking at here?
He's got a lot of like the SECs, Alabama, Georgia Tech. I think Xavier just offered him. Florida may have just offered him. So it's in that ballpark. And my guess is it probably will stay there, but I could very easily see like a Kansas, Kentucky, Carolina dude. Like Louisville, like it could get to that level. I mean, he's a big-time talent now. But the other guy who really kind of jumped out to me too, I think we have him ranked in the top 100 is RJ Godfrey.
Yeah, we've got him in the top 100.
Yeah, playing against Grayson on a North Gwinnett Grayson game at the Jared Cook Classic. I mean, talk about a guy that can do everything. He's 6'6". He looks like a football player. His dad's actually Randall Godfrey, who played for the Cowboys. But he's a tremendous prospect. He's a kind of a do-it-all forward. He probably blocked 5 shots in a quarter, but he's a kind of a point forward kind of deal going on, rebounds. Only kind of hole in his game is he's not a consistent shooter yet, but he's getting better. So there's hope. But, I mean, kind of a little bit like you're talking about with Mark Vitale. Like, he's got some of that to him, I think.
Impacting the game in other ways. How did my boy Ian look, speaking of Grayson?
But, yeah, I mean, just kind of the same thing as he always is. I mean, just a super productive guy. I mean, he'll go out. Like, you can pretty much – anytime there's a big game and Ian's playing, you're probably going to get pretty close to a double-double.
It's going to be interesting to see. I really do. And like I said, it's small sample size, and I'm a big believer in sample size. You never know. You could be seeing a kid the day after his grandma died, and you'll never know. So you can see a kid at his worst or his best. But in the 3 games that I saw that kid play, he's going to be special. Not special. He's going to impact Clemson's team. There's no doubt about it. I mean,
and he's the kind of guy. Brad Brownell's done a great job signing guys like that. Guys that maybe they're not the McDonald's All-American, but they're going to come in, they're going to be there for 4 years, and they're going to steadily get better, and they're going to steadily produce. And, we talked about teams that kind of surprised us. I mean, watching Clemson play against Mississippi State, and can't remember who else they beat, but they beat somebody else pretty good too. Like, they got a lot of guys this year. They could be a problem in the ACC.
Have you seen much of McIntyre? He committed to UCLA today, right before we.
He's one of those guys that I've kind of just got lost because there was no circuits this year, so I didn't get a chance to see him. But I've always heard really good things. Just kind of an impactful big man that will help now UCLA right away next year.
UCLA needs the help. So, all right, I guess that's all. What else is new with you? Anything good? I mean, I guess we should sign off. I kind of wanted to work some non-basketball stuff to the end here. What are you up to, man? Are you watching anything interesting? Any TV recommendations?
I'm terrible at this. Like, I don't like Netflix. You've got to hook me within the first 20 minutes of the first episode. But I will say, you know what I caught on this week?
Hold on. What shows have you tried to watch and failed? Is what I want. This is the interesting thing.
We've done House of Cards. We've done. I don't even try honestly that often anymore. But the show that kind of hooked me this weekend that was on a loop was Aerial America or Aerial Cities or whatever. It's on.
I don't know what it is.
Discovery Channel, but they just basically.
Is it about the Little Mermaid?
No, it's just they go to like a state. So pick like Texas, and they'll just fly like drones all over the state and just kind of tell you the history of the state. Or California, I watched one on San Francisco. They kind of went over the whole layout of the fault lines and like. If you're into like geography, history kind of stuff, like I am, like it's pretty good. I mean, you can sit there and watch like 3 or 4 episodes and 4 hours goes by.
It's on Netflix?
No, I just happened to see it. I think it might have been the Smithsonian Channel. That or Discovery, or maybe both. I don't know.
Oh man, you got fancy cable. I'm out here stealing people's.
I'm on YouTube TV, man. So.
Oh, even better. I was thinking about trying that. You like it?
Oh, I love it. Great sports channels, and there's enough. You get the USA, TNT, Comedy Central, just that NFL Network, which is a big one.
I am working scams on a level in this house that I'm almost afraid to talk about it on the podcast. But
I don't want you to get in trouble on your own podcast. Yeah,
I've got some kind of scam thing going on where I'm getting channels from Europe, from Australia, and it's a whole thing. Some guy at a sketchy bar sold me a Fire Stick. All right. Anyway, my recommendation for the week is something that everybody else in America has already watched, I think, but I just discovered it because my friend made me watch it. Are you familiar with what Big Brother is, right? Are you familiar with I always thought it was like the Real World and it was just like a bunch of drunk. Yeah. No. No. They do a terrible job marketing this. It's like a social warfare game. It's interesting. It's like it's kind of like I guess like a real life Royal Rumble, I guess. Like you're just trying to kind of outfox people to get them out of the house, and it's not what you think it is. And if you like kind of like,
I mean, I was all about like the Real World and like I did a little bit of Jersey Shore back in the day. Like
these are like smarter. It's not like, hey, watch how stupid these people are. It's like watch how socially cunning these people are to be able to stab each other in the back to the point where they can kick each other out of the house. I'd highly recommend it to anybody that likes sociology.
It's a little bit like Survivor.
It's like Survivor, except it's not as competition heavy. There are competitions. It's more of a power struggle. And, you got me for that. And so I tuned in and just started binge watching like old seasons. And I have not seen something in a long time that swerved my expectations so bad. I really did. When my friend was telling me to watch it, I was like, I'm not going to watch The Real World. And I turned it on and kind of figured out what it was. And I was like, man, why haven't I been watching this the whole time? And then there's people like you that really, I don't feel like people know what it is. They just assume.
Yeah, no, I think my brother watched it. I know I have other friends who've watched it, but yeah, I've just kind of always assumed it was kind of along the Real World lines. And I had a Real World phase where I think I watched probably like 4 or 5 straight seasons, but
I watched a couple, but it's not interesting. There's no if there's no backstabbing and there's not like a prize to win, I'm out.
Yeah, it's just it's hard for me. I mean, that was like early 20s, Dan. Like,
sure, yeah,
I'm a little more sophisticated now in my early 30s.
Well, yeah, now we're watching aerial flyover history shows of.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to the point where I'm watching like history and trying to educate myself.
World War II in color.
I've seen like bits and pieces of it. Yeah,
it's really good.
Oh yeah.
As somebody, history was like a blind spot for me for a really long time, but I've been trying to kind of brush up on a lot of American history.
Yeah, you're talking to a history major here, so yeah, that's kind of right up my alley.
Yeah, math and history are my two blind spots. I just kind of checked out. But now, I'm not interested in math at all, but I am interested in history now. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this with me, and we'll get together again, obviously. This is becoming a pretty regular thing. You're not so bad to have around.
I'm all about it.
All right, Dan, I appreciate it, man. We'll see you soon.
All right, Rob. Take care.